to think that the man would have been here to see these 6,000 or 7,000 people on the street would like to have seen him presently. But he was denied because they said he was too conservative. And he had given Jose Williams his blessings to go against Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I sat there for a little while, but it was burning in me. So I said, no, I'm not going to let him take over. I'm just not going to do it. And I walked up on the platform, and I taken the mic, and I was going to tell the people what Dr. King would like to have done. And they started singing, and kind of moved around there a little bit because they know then that something had broke loose.
Yeah.
And I did say this, and you find this in your paper. I said, well, anyway, Dr. King said Mobile's leadership is rotten. I said that loud and handed the mic and walked off the platform.
That's all you had to say?
Mm-hmm.
That's all you had a chance to say?
That was all, because you see that David Jacobs' wife is the one that had taken over. And see, they too was the one that was taking over. And they were having it to go their way and not the way that we had planned it. See, the whole program, she changed the whole program and had these ministers up there. Had this minister out of St. Mark's Church to get up there and give the life of Dr. King. I said, Lord, have mercy. Oh, what could he say? Wasn't much he could say. Wasn't much he could say. And he was giving the life of Dr. King. Then here was this other one, and the Bishop May.
Bishop Vaya, yes.
Got up and touched me on the shoulder and said, sit down. I turned around and looked at him, and I said, look at here. Well, you've been telling us to sit down long enough. Don't tell us to sit down no more. Don't tell me to sit back no more. He said if he could have gone through the floor, he would have. Said he wouldn't have never done that. Said, but those black ministers told him that I belonged to his church, and for him to sit me down. He said, I never will get over that. He said, if the floor hadn't went open, he would have went through, because that was sure true.
Yeah. Well, at least he admitted that.
So you right now, you listening to all that?
Yes, I'm listening. I'm taping it.
You're going to fix it up right, ain't you now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So the assassination of King was just, and that period when y'all were trying to get him here was the crisis, really, for you.
Mm-hmm. I believe. Yeah.
And now it was reorganized at that time?
You see, we organized. I was one of the organizers. I'm a chartered member.
Yeah.
We organized now to go into the neighborhood and help the neighbors, to enlighten the neighbors of the happening.
Mm-hmm.
To educate them on voting rights, how to go to the polls and so on,
Yeah.
And whatever, their problems were. Now, you're taking the project, those people over in the project, we tried to get them to stop saying project and to say a court.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we tried to get them, because it didn't match up so well. And we worked along with those people over there. They were afraid of the welfare, because they were afraid if they had anything or kept their house clean, or they were afraid the welfare would say they're living too good and would take them off of the welfare.
Yeah.
All right. Their housing that they were living in, they lived in fear in the housing, because they didn't know when time they would come in and say, you got to get out. And they had a turnkey where that the woman or man, it was always a woman that I knew of, would go in your house like you were single, would go in your house and if they found any woman's appeal in there or any man or cigarette or anything, they would leave a note there for you to come up to the office that you had a man there living with you or a woman, you know. And this was going on. Well, we got into that. We stopped that. And
they were actually doing that?
Yes, they were actually doing that. Yes, one old lady was real old, and she got up and she said, "You all do this to me one more time." And there were her husband's clothes and things. She had never moved out of the drawers and things.
Yeah.
And they went in there and found these men's clothes, and they thought she had a man in there. And she said, "Here I am." I think she said she's 71 years old. And come here talking about me with a lover man. A lover man. And the next time I catch one of y'all in my house, she said, "I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to kill you." And John got up and said to her, "Oh, I'm surprised that you and a woman of that age talking about killing people." She said, "You come in there and mess with it, you hear? I'll kill you." I'll kill you. Well, this was actually going on. And they were just afraid. The people were living, and this is going on now. They're living in fear right now.
Mm.
They're living in fear. They got to lie to live.
Is the housing authority that bad?
Mm-hmm.
Mobile Housing Board?
Yes, right. Mm-hmm.
That's the attitude of the people that run it, you think?
Yeah. And like they have their little Social Security, and they go up on the Social Security, they go up on the rent. So what good does the Social Security do? They gave it to them because of the high cost of living.
Yeah.
They can't eat. And some of them don't know how to go and tell about the food stamps, get the food stamps. It's just something terrible to me that when I was one of them that went to Washington and was on the panel to get this kind of money.
Yeah.
December the 8th. Get money, you know, this. I don't know.
Public housing?
No, not the fund to, you know, the welfare and all this kind of thing, getting all this federal money.
Yeah.
Well, all that's derived from Dr. King. They don't want to say so, but it did.
Mm-hmm.
That derived from him. At MAC Act.
Yeah.
All of those. I knew all about them before they ever reached here. And they never have reached the people. So the people were living in fear. So we decided that we would organize an organization. So we got together, a group of us got together, younger people, and I was the oldest one there, because I wanted to see young people to start in something, because these old ones going to die out, which John died and left them with nothing to go upon.
Mm-hmm.
See, he died with it. He kept it in him.
There wasn't another leader to take his place in Mobile?
Pardon me?
There was not another leader to take his place in Mobile?
Yeah, they could take his place, but what he died within him. He didn't tell. He didn't train them. They just had to pick up with what they could.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided we would organize, and after we organized, we said, well, what would we name it? Well, this is what our plans were, was to go out into the community and try to get the people to understand what was happening. So this is why it was named Neighborhood Organized Workers.
Yeah.
But we never could get it off of the ground because the president was not educated in this kind of thing. If we had had a president that was, knowing how to go about this would have been different. He didn't come up as a poor boy. And we didn't get a poor person to be that leader.
Beasley?
To understand what was happening.
You're talking about Noble Beasley?
No. David Jacob. This was before Beasley came in.
Oh, I see.
And then after Dr. King's death, this is when I asked to put the march on, and we would use the charter so that we would be a chartered organization to go out and do this. So this is where now was reorganized, and this is where they've taken over. This is where Noble Beasley and them taken over. And
he wasn't a member up until that point?
No. He wasn't a member.
Nor Finley?
No. There wasn't but 3 that was on there that was organized now was 3. But all the rest of us was not, they didn't recognize us at all. I just made myself being recognized. I just stepped out.
Well, I guess you were active in the going to the meetings.
I was.
Yeah.
And they looked upon me as being in the 3rd grade, and was in the beginners, and they didn't want nobody to know they was in the beginners, so they kicked the 3rd grade people out. They knew too much.
Yeah.
And this is what the credit they gave me, that I knew too much and was so far ahead of them. When the food stamps came in, nobody knew about the food stamps. And I went to the NAACP to, let them know about the food stamps. And Gilead was trying to tell it, but he wasn't telling it right. So I said, well, President, I said, if you don't mind it, I said, I will give it to you. I said, I have it right here. And he said, well, Miss Williams, you're perfectly welcome. He said, I've got to leave now. So he whispered over to another minister, told him to take over, and he went on out. Because he didn't want me to know, that people to know that he didn't know for what I had to say. So he never did let me say anymore. So these are the kind of things that has been happening, is that they don't want you to come out and be ahead of them. So this coalition, they'll never get on their feet because they don't have the right people to know anything about the problems of the people. And
did now have a better organization in that regard? Did they have better contact with the people?
Yes, they had. They were the only one that really had the people. They were always filled.
Was that just because the times were so such a crisis?
You mean in the?
I mean, is that because people were more together during that time?
Well, it wasn't so much of being together as it was that they were radical. They just broke loose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That Sunday, well, they accuses me of this, but I wish they wouldn't. But they said that Sunday that I got on the stage, that's when everything broke loose. Well, they did get rather radically in the building, because they were hollering, let that lady talk, leave her alone, let her talk. And then I saw them all coming up towards the platform hollering, let her talk, let her talk. So I said, now, this is no time for this. And I didn't want to start no riot or anything of the sort. So that's why I had to get ill and give over, because I could have kept the mic and holler, talk loud, and drown the lady's voice that was trying to sing. But I thought it was best that I not do that. And just, give over and let them have their program. So.
But that night there were riots, right?
Yeah. They were.
But that was before Now reorganized, really.
No.
No?
That was when Now. That was Now's first protest. That was Dr. King's march.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Now members on their own probably engaged in burning and things like that.
Now, I wouldn't want to be the one to say yes.
Yeah.
Because I really don't know that. I really don't know that. But they were accused of it.
Yeah, I know they were.
They were accused of it.
Have,
And they had the people going pretty well straight, too, because it was a threat that this would happen.
did you read Richardson's book about the Now?
Yeah, but
did you read that?
yeah, I didn't read all of it. He just brought it in, let me see the part that he had in there about me. But he shouldn't have done that without, getting the real facts.
Do you think it's not accurate?
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
some of it is and some of it isn't. He just gave it as he saw it.
Yeah.
But it isn't just, accurate. It's not. It's another book. Did you ever read the one on Pritchett that I think Jay, and this guy from out of Washington or New York somewhere wrote a book up on Pritchett?
No, I didn't.
Well, they got a book that they wrote up here on Pritchett, and it's
History of Pritchett?
yeah, and it's not the Pritchett that we know. It's the Pritchett that they know.
I see.
And this was the first year that Jay was elected.
J. Cooper?
Cooper, yeah. This was the first year he was elected. And it's false. Some things are, and some things, most of the book is not accurate.
Yeah.
Some of the things are. And I don't know whether it's a hardback book. It's a red-looking book. But they presented me one. I had to find it around here somewhere. But Jay presented me a book. Yeah. A Pritchett, but it's not the Pritchett that we know.
Yeah. Well, what has happened like in the last 5 years in civil rights movement? What are the things that people are concerned about, like you right now?
Well, I got myself involved in prison.
Prison reform?
Of how that they were, being, and I will have to say, put this flower on me, that it did make a change in a lot of things. And it is still making a lot of changes. But it's a long ways from being right. A long ways. So that's what really that I have been involved in the past 5, well, since 72.
Mm-hmm.
I became involved.
Did you visit prison or something?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, I would be in places where they wouldn't allow others to be in.
And did you find it pretty appalling?
Mm-hmm. Some parts of it, not like they were going to visit up there. And
Yeah.
they would have to let them know they were coming to visit. Well, then they would have them to clean this a little bit off,
Right.
and let you see just that, and that's all. And the filthy part you didn't see.
Right.
Now, when Dobbins and Dodson was killed, they sent for Sister Patricia and myself, but they had been writing me, and I have those letters here, and they sent me a death list of these that really have been, on the list is gone. Not all of them, but after the news got out that someone had this death list, well, I didn't hide it. I let them know it was me. That they had sent me a death list from Holman's and a death list from the farm, we call the farm, which is Fountain now. And these people that's been on there, 3 or 4 of them has really been. And they kept sending for me. And I kept telling Sister Patricia, I said, I don't know whether we should go or not. And she said, well, I don't think we should. So I kept writing them back and tried to smooth them off,
Yeah.
that we were doing all we could and we were going to do this or another, trying to smooth them. So the day of the riot, they told them that they wasn't going to turn the officers loose until they got hold of Sister Patricia and I. So Mr. Harding told them that he wasn't going to send to get no son of a so-and-so. But he was boss and he was running this place. And he's the one that did the first shooting.
And when did this happen?
This happened in January the 1916 or 19 and 73.
At home?
74. I think it was in 74 when this happened. Anyway, so this is what the riot was about the condition. And they had been asking and asking and asking and asking for changes, and they never would give it to them. So the man that testified against these other brothers was in there. He's the one that had the pick. Well, one of the fellas, Frank Moore, said to me, he said, Sister Dorothy, he said, I'm not going to lie. He said, my mother told me not to lie, and I'm a Muslim, and I said, I shall not kill. He said, I don't know whether I killed him or whether this white guy killed him. He said, this white guy was working on him. This white guy was working on him with this pick, and said, and we were just so panicked. He said, we don't know half what we were doing. He said, but I remember wrestling the pick away from him, and this is how he got stabbed, was wrestling with the pick. And I taken it away from him, and I went to work on him and said, I don't know whether he killed that man or whether I killed that God or whether he killed who did what. He says, I could not say. He said, but when I go to court, I'm going to tell it just this way. I'm going to tell the truth. And he was in the Brooklyn jail. I went up there to see him that Thursday, and he told me again that if he ever gets to court, and I looked down the hall, and who did I see walking around was this white guy that was turning state evidence, and they told him if he turned state evidence, that he would, they would let him loose.
Right.
That Friday night or Saturday morning before day, Frank was hung. Was no way in the world for him to hang himself. He didn't have nothing to stand upon. And he wasn't quite as tall as you.
Yeah.
And the walls were very high. And there was no way for him to hang himself on that light fixture. So somebody had to do it. And he had burns on his neck like a rope that was tied on. And he had bruises all over him. And we got pictures of him when we carried him to the undertaker. We got pictures of all his bruises. So there was no way in the world for him to have hung himself. So Johnny Harris and Johnson, I can't think of his first name now, but anyway, they two were the flunkies, and they were passing the meals around. So they are having Johnny Harris as the murderer. But Johnny Harris is not the murderer.
What do you know about that?
Pardon me?
Well, yeah, what about that? That's a different riot, wasn't it?
No.
Johnny,
right.
Same one?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
And see, this is the same one that Frank Moore is telling me that he and Sister Patricia was there. We went there to see them. Sister Patricia was there. Martin Johnson or Martin, that's over the news in Birmingham or Montgomery. Martin.
Don't know.
Anyway, it's a Martin in it. It's a news reporter. And Reed Grace, Fred Grace. We were the ones that went there and heard the report on this. But Johnny Harris did not kill. He did not kill. And Johnny Harris.
Do you know him? Is it?
Yes, I know him.
Yeah.
I dealt with him. Very few of them up there. They called me Sister Dorothy or Mama Williams. That's what they called me.
Oh.
And Johnny Harris, in his hometown, he came from, they had moved. They were all in the movement. They were in the civil rights movement.
Right.
And they moved in an integrated neighborhood. And they kept on picking and nasty, you know how they were back then, nasty with them. And they decided they were going to get ahead of somebody, and they picked that child up for rape. I don't know how many times of rape and attempted murder and robbery. And he wasn't guilty of any of them.
Yeah.
But this is another Scotchboro case.
Right.
And they would not, say that they did not. He did not. They weren't going back on their word. So that boy is in there for something that he did. And this is what brought me out into the civil rights, because of this kind of unjust in the court, where justice is supposed to be for all men. But they never gave it to the black man. His word was never heard. So now they want to murder him, and he is not guilty of murdering that guard.
Yeah.
And nobody don't want to hear my voice. I guess they'd chop my neck off too. But anyway, I've got proof here.
His trial is still pending, isn't it?
Yes. I went to Grady.
Yeah.
Valesky. I told Valesky, because Valesky was the district attorney at their trial. And I went to him and told him that I would feel very guilty to know that I know this, and to let them go ahead and electrocute an innocent man. You know Valesky?
Yeah.
He was a judge. And I told him, he said, come up to the office and let's talk about it. I said, well, I think that you and Braddock should know this. And I went to tell them this. I went to Bill Baxley. I told him. When we had his trial, I went to Dees. I said, ask that guy, where did he get that pick? I say, he's the one that had that pick. And he did it. So he said, do you know that? I said, ask him. When he comes out, ask him about that pick. And he asked him, and this is at Harris's trial, he asked him about that pick. And he said, yes, I knew where it was all the time. He said, did you get it? He said, yes, I did. So what did you do with it? He said, well, somebody taken it from me. Well, that was Frank.
Yeah.
And stabbed him. So now, that was Frank that told me the same words that he told in the court. But they had never brought that pick up before. So Frank had told me this, and I went to Dees.
Do you think they got rid of Frank Moore so that they could pin it on
I guess
Johnny Harris?
Yeah. Or either this, I said, Joel had the chance to get in there and do that because, see, he had already threatened him that he was going to tell the truth. He was going to tell the truth. But by him going for state witness, But when Dees asked him about that pick, that's what he said. So that was right there to say that the guy had the pick. He said the black guy got the pick from him and stabbed him with the pick. So that's what Frank told me. But he was working. He said he was working on that guard. And he got that picture here. And the God that's living is also saying that Harris did it.
Harris did. Yeah.
Yeah, he still, let's see, one was Lou, the other one's Borrow. Borrow's the one that's living. Yeah. And he's saying the same thing. So I feel guilty by them not, it's something very strange that they won't do. It's the same thing went over with the Scottsboro boys.
Yeah.
Look at those poor young men. Lives was destroyed and destructed for the lack of sin.
Well, you're still active in the on prison reform?
Yeah, as far as I can.
What's the group you're with?
Well, I'm with the Alabama Volunteer on Correction, and I organize over 500 families of inmates, and that organization is named Families for Action. But I'm still with the SCLC.
Okay.
It's up to...
Are you an organizer, would you say, for the SCLC?
No. I'm not an organizer. I'm just a staff member.
Yeah.
And affiliated.
Right.
Don't miss the convention. But I think I'm going to miss this one.
Where is it held?
It's going to be held, I think, in Arkansas. If there's no changes. I think it's going to...
Lord knows,
they're
not
going to have
Little
a
Rock.
mini... They're going to have a mini one in Atlanta to check this out about Jose being fired.
Yeah.
You see, this is something that Dr. would continue, and he turned around and looked at the group staff members was on the... He said, Jose, he says, I'm expecting you, he pointed his finger, I'm expecting you to keep the dream going. And he went on down the line, called the name. Keep my dream. He said, and this is the dream that I want you all to keep growing. Don't let the dream die. And that's what Jose was trying to do.
When did you first meet King?
I met Dr. King in 53 or 4. 53 or 4. When I met him.
What was he doing at that time?
In the movement?
Yeah. Well, he was a preacher at the time?
Yeah. His church is right at the foot of the Capitol.
Yeah.
And there's another Dexter down on the next corner, which is a Methodist church. But Dr. King, my daughter is married in that family.
I see.
His mother and my daughter's father-in-law were raised together. They were two sisters' children, and they were raised together. His mother raised her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how I became known in the family.
I see. Your family.
Uh-huh. That's how I became known. But it is it's so much to talk about Resurrection City. I never will forget Resurrection City.
Yeah. Well, let's... Well, at the time of World War II, we were talking about you working at the dormitory there at Brookley Field. About that same time, you had to move because of the housing shortage?
Yes. Leave my job on account of housing. I had to moved from the house we were living in because the people, you know, were buying homes and they bought it for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have no place to go but to Citronelle.
That was the closest housing for you?
Well, my husband's home and the grandmother had passed, and there was no one there in the home, so we just decided to go up there.
Yeah. Was there work up there for your husband?
No. He's continued working down here, crystallizing.
I see. At that time, how many kids did you have?
I've had 3 since then.
I see. So 3
That
from
was
20.
9.
9 children. So you were mainly, you had more than a full-time job taking care of the children at that time. Yeah. Did you work any more domestic or anything like that after that?
Yes. I would go around, you know, wherever they would call me to come help them out, but my regular job was at Citronelle High School and the First Baptist Church in Citronelle.
You were doing maid work?
I was janitor at the church and at the school.
I see. Well, you had 12 children. I guess that was about mid-50s when you had your full family with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, about that same time you said you got involved in the first of the civil rights movement?
No, not while I
Late
was at
50s.
Citronelle.
Yeah.
I was just involved in school and work.
Uh-huh. Did y'all move back to Mobile?
Yeah. But my daughter was the first black girl, and we were living in Citronelle at this time.
Yeah.
Was the first black girl to go into the Air Force of the South.
Wow.
And no one in Citronelle never recognized her. My 2
You mean didn't give her any kind of recognition?
No.
For...
And my 2 next oldest boys, they went in. This was during the Korean War.
Mm-hmm.
It was right after the, World War II. And the 2 boys went into the service. The one was 17 years old, was wounded. He volunteered. He was wounded and he was captive twice. But somehow or another he was able to get out of it. The other one, he was over in the Tonka Islands, and they were experimenting on the atomic bomb.
My goodness.
And he made a career of it, and he got hepatitis, I guess it comes from the kind of water. As soon as he came back home, he began to really take an effect on it.
My goodness.
But he died from hepatitis.
My word.
In the Veterans Hospital.
How many of your children have been in the military?
I've had 4 boys, 2 spy boys. One is in the Marines. What you call the standby in the
Marine Reserve?
Part reserve.
Yeah.
And he's been in there over 20. He's been in there about 20 years.
Oh.
In the reserve, which he has been pulled up, very high.
Yeah.
In that. And the other 2 boys, they were in the Vietnam War, and they both were on the front.
Oh.
And that was the other 2 boys was in the Korean War, and the other 3 boys were Vietnam, I guess you would say. They all have had overseas experience.
Yeah. And you had one daughter in the military too?
One daughter, that she was the first black of the South. At this end of the South, at least, they found 2 more girls volunteered in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were sent down here to the South, to San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
And her life is ruined from that experience of going through the gas chamber, and she's still affected from it.
The gas chamber?
The gas chamber. You know, they have to go through gas. They had to put a mask over them, and they didn't fix the mask right and show her how to fix it right on her. It wasn't right. And she was all burned. And she still suffers from it.
But would you say that the military was a good opportunity for you children?
I guess they'll put me under the jail. Because when they came back, they didn't have their freedom after fighting to free the United States.
Yeah.
They came back to the United States, and they still wasn't free. They couldn't fight for themselves. They were still segregated. And
this is even the kids who came back from the Vietnam War.
Yeah. No, those two that came from the Vietnam War, well, see, it was, everything then, was different.
Yeah.
But the ones that was in the Korean War, they was not.
What were what was the main thing? They couldn't get a job? Is that what the main thing? Main discrimination was when they came back?
Well, it wasn't a matter of them getting a job as it was, that they didn't have the freedom to be free to go where they wanted to go. I had one boy, the one that died with hepatitis. Well, he and one of his mates came, and they went to a restaurant on Dawson Street, and they told this white guy that put him out. They put him out, and told him that they had to serve this nigger, but they couldn't, didn't have to serve him. So they put him out. And my son then, naturally, he got up and walked out. We didn't have much sense then. He could have gone on and put a suit against them, so,
Yeah, well, it's different times.
Yeah. But he didn't realize it, so he came on back here. And he told me, he said, he said, I'm not used to the South. And this is my first time being here. He said, I didn't know this was going on in the South. So,
That was his first time back from the
that
service.
was the first time this white guy had came back.
Yeah.
The first time he came to the South. He didn't know it was this crucial.
Well, would you say that was the experiences of your sons coming back from war was what alerted you to the situation more than anything else?
Well, it wasn't so much of them coming back from war. I guess, just would go back to where there was so much going on. The way that the blacks was being treated. If a black man killed a man, he had to go up. But if a white man, and this is on the law, this is in the book, that if a white man killed a black man, he was a free man. And but if a black man killed anyone, he, went to the gallows.
Yeah.
He was executed. And I would think about, how many was in these kind of things. And I had a brother-in-law to be, he was terribly beaten because the streetcar at that time, and he was coming from work, and he worked at Smith Baker, and he was coming from work, and he had to cross a path, cutting across a field, and the streetcar was coming along, and somehow or another, the streetcar man said that, he was held up. And he had stopped on the wayside, to give himself a relief. And they rushed up to him and got him as the man who held the streetcar up. And he wasn't on the car. He was walking from Smith Baker because he didn't live that far from Smith Baker. So they taken him to the city jail. And they beat him up. At that time, they had a cell in there, a water cell. And they would put you in this water cell. There was nothing in there but water. and you had standing there. If you wanted to lay down, you didn't have nowhere to lay down. If you went to sleep, you drowned.
That's in the city jail?
It was in the city jail at that time. And they burned him, they put hot lights on him and, you know, everything to make him sad. So they had done him so cruelly to make him sad, and they would say, now you know you did it, say yes, say yes. So he said he had taken all the punishment that he could take. So he just said yes, so he went off and served his time, and he wasn't guilty. So this, you know, bothered me quite a bit. So I said, if there was ever a way that I could help to fight this freedom that I'm looking for, I'm going to fight it. And
when was that? How old were you?
that was around in the early 30s. It must have been around 31, 32, somewhere around in
Yeah.
that time. And
So you were a pretty young woman at the
yes, I
time.
was young then.
And after that, you still had to, for many years, well, you worked as a domestic for several years after that, did you? After that time?
You mean after?
When- after the early 30s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my first, no, it wasn't domestic at that time.
Mm-hmm.
See, I was married then.
Yeah.
First job I had was at Brooklyn Field.
Right. Well, when do you first recall that there was any organization of blacks protesting treatment they would get?
The NAACP.
And was that a local branch that you first heard of? Or
Yes, that was a local branch.
Mobile branch of NAACP? Who first contacted you from them?
That was John LaFleur.
John LaFleur? How did you know him?
Well, school days.
Oh, y'all were school buddies?
Uh-huh.
No kidding. Down the bay?
Down the bay, yeah.
Oh. And so you knew him, and he was the active leader in the NAACP.
Yes.
And so you.
He and Mr. William Bolden were the two that, you know, brought it here.
William Bolden.
William Bolden.
Mm-hmm.
They were the one that brought it here to Mobile,
I see.
and then we all were members.
Were you one of the first members?
Well, I wouldn't say I was one of the first members. No.
You went to the meetings at that time?
Yes.
What was that like? What things were discussed? How was it?
Well, it would be discussed, but we were a little afraid to talk, you know.
You were?
Yeah, we had to
Where
be
did you
careful
meet?
what we said and how we did this.
Where did y'all get together?
Well, we would have a mass meeting, and so many of them was afraid to come out. They were threatened by the Klansmen and so on, and they were afraid to come out. But we, you know, carried on very well.
Did you meet at a church?
Yes, Metropolitan Church was on Davis Avenue. Still on Davis Avenue now, but it's not in the same place it was at that time. And they'd meet around at various churches, you know.
Yeah. What were some of the subjects that you addressed?
Well, we would be talking about segregation, about, you know, different ones being in these kind of problems, like I just said, my brother-in-law.
Yeah. And was there a plan in Mobile ever for any kind of nonviolent protest or anything like that?
Yeah, we didn't have no violence.
But was there any planned demonstrations?
No,
Things like that?
no, afraid to do that.
Too afraid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some kind of the threats that you were up against? I mean,
What are some of the things we was up against?
some of the threats that
Well,
you were facing.
well, it was really, they were just really afraid because there was so much was being done. There was some, people were taken away from homes and they didn't know where in the world they were. You take up at Silas, Alabama, they would come along and would say, John, come on over here, I want you to come and help me. And that's when John done talked too much or he knew too much. And they never would see John no more. Find him out in the woods somewhere dead.
Yeah.
And those kind of things, just frighten us, that we have to be very careful and have a kind of a social undercover. But John was very strong. He was very, very strong to really say, for here in this part of the country, he was the strongest man we had. He never feared anything.
Yeah.
We had, when I was in Citronelle, we had a fellow that would get drunk and they'd have him arrested. So they had him in the jail, and they had the WPA was at that time, and they had a sewing going on in the jail, and he was cursing and going on so the ladies went out and threatened. So they went in there to mob him because he was cursing and going on. So they went in there to mob him. And I happened to hear about it, and I called down to Mobile and told them to get in touch with John or somebody to send up there because they were going to get this man out and kill him. So sure enough, the message got to John, and John and them came up there, and they threatened him, but John got him out of there and brought him to Mobile. So John came back up to the house and said that he wasn't true. He was going to, so he really investigated it. And the sheriff told him, don't he come back up there no more. If he did, he couldn't protect him anymore. So John didn't come back anymore because he hadn't he had completed his mission.
He saved the guy from being
lynched. He saved him from being mobbed. So they were, when John sent the sheriff and all of them up there, the mob was going in on it. They got there just in time. So.
Yeah. Well, you said that John LaFleur was very strong, one of the strongest leaders that had in this area. Well,
we don't have enough. Well, I'll say Nova Beasley, was strong.
Yeah.
But not any of them was like John.
Yeah.
Not any. Never have been anyone. I doubt if they ever will be one.
Yeah.
Be as strong as John. He was a mighty brilliant, good man.
Well, I know you've heard before, and I might as well use this as a point of departure, that people in the black community some say that usually they're very young people, that LaFleur did not take as active a role as he should have, like in terms of demonstrations and etc.
And in the later days, because he was bought. Yes, that's true.
Is that true?
Yes, this is true. This happened back. This happened back in the early. Well, no. Let's see, around in the middle 50s, when he began to sell out. And see what they had done to him. They had got next to him, and would give him money when election time comes, and so on, until they had him under their thumb, that he went their way, and they would tell him to go, and cool these people down, and he would go do it because he knew if he didn't, he knew what fool he would have, and that really has been in the late days, but not in the beginning. He was a strong man, but when John felt his superior over anyone was in, I'll say around 59, around 58 or 59 is when John felt his strength.
Felt his strength?
Felt his strength. That he could take over, and he really did. He got what he wanted. He was a strong man for that to take what he did. He wasn't afraid.
What accounts for that kind of change?
Because he was bought over.
He was what?
He was bought.
What accounts for the fact that he could be bought? I mean,
well, this is what we are saying.
Is that people just that weak? Is that it? Or is it they had no choice?
You see, Bishop Smith was another one that this was done to. Reverend Lowry, he left. He left town. But Bishop Smith was bought over. And what we mean by being bought over is that the leadership pat him on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And bring him down to the city hall, the courthouse, that showed him, just made him feel as they was everything. And then they put him in on these committees. So then they didn't have no choice.
Like the housing board?
Yeah. And you take like Gilliard. Gilliard is in a cramp now.
He is what?
He's in one of those, because he can't go no further. If a teacher would go to him and ask him as the president of the NAACP to fight her case, he couldn't help her because he's sitting up there on the board. He's got to help where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of things that, that they do. They gladly to get him. Then they could take care of the NAACP. And he can take care of cases outside of the school board. But if anything happens on in the school, there will be nothing that he could do. Because he'd be going against his own. And these are the kind of things that has happened to all the others.
Yeah. When did the nonpartisan voters, when did LaFleur start in on that, the nonpartisan voters?
Well, now...
Was that at the same time?
You see, the nonpartisan voters league came out from under the NAACP.
Yeah.
They could not work in political, the NAACP. And they couldn't say they wanted a Democrat or a Republican. They had to be nonpartisan, and they were nonpartisan.
Mm-hmm.
So then they decided that they would just form this one, and this was just an organization formed out from under there.
Yeah.
So when the NAACP was knocked out during Patterson's time, and he was the Attorney General, because he thought that the NAACP that was causing the disturbance with, the boycott in Montgomery.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the NAACP, it was the Christian movement. And what brought that about was that Mr. Thomas, Rosa was the secretary of the NAACP. Thomas went to his pastor, Reverend Shuttleworth, and asked him what could be done, that he had been trying to get the NAACP to do something about this while they had a chance, and they seemed to drag their feet for a whole year. So they decided they would go on and try to get something done. And they went then to Reverend Steele. And from Reverend Steele to Dr. King. And Dr. King to Reverend Allen. And they started the Christian movement.
Right.
And this is what was fighting for Rosa Parks and put the boycott on. Patterson thought that that was the NAACP, so they ousted the NAACP for 8 years.
Right.
So then the Nonpartisan Voters League was still in, so John was the secretary of the NAACP, so he just went along with the Nonpartisan Voters League. So that's where
Yeah.
they went into, political. It's what they were doing, and then
What-
they went into fighting other cases.
Yeah. It wasn't long after that, though, that you say that he started being bought in terms of votes, didn't he?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Was the Nonpartisan Voters League like a machine that was easily corrupted? Is that it? I mean, it was easily bought. Is that the idea?
You mean?
Once they set up an organization to control a number of votes, that it wasn't long after that somebody got bought off.
Yeah.
Or was
You see, they started a screening committee,
yeah.
and the screening committee was screening in the candidates. Now, you might listen to this very carefully.
Yes, I'm okay.
The candidates were bought over too. The candidates would go there and
Have an interview.
just say, I would just say like yourself, you would go there and they would ask you what is your platform, and then ask you how much money can you afford, because they had to have this money to, hire people to put leaflets out and so on.
Sure.
Then you would say, well, I don't have much. I've got $50.
Mm-hmm.
Take your $50. Or in about 15 more minutes, they haven't got you on out the way. And then they'd have the next one to come in. And they would do the same thing with this one.
Yeah.
And they would do this on, and they would be getting this money.
Yeah.
Then in the later years, it came about that they would say, well, now, we done made our round now. Well, Williams, you go on over and you tell so-and-so, you tell him that you're going to split up and that they wasn't going for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like it, so I decided that I would just go on out and try to help you because I like you. All right, that poor man want to be elected, and he just fought for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And this went on, and he got money out of him. They get back together, and they split this money up.
Right.
And this is what went on through the years. Well, back when it was the end of ACT, they put out a pink slip.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was running for the pink slip. And those that had a phone, they would call and ask you, did you get the pink slip?
Right.
And they would be the one telling us, who to vote for. We didn't know John Henry.
Right.
We didn't know Tom, Dick, or Harry.
Mm-hmm.
But we went along with because this is whom they said.
Right.
And see, they would be the ones who would be getting the money, whether they were good to us or not good
Mm-hmm.
to us.
Yeah.
And this went on through the years with this pink slip.
It's still going on. They still had the pink slip in the last election.
Yeah. And it had caused confusions when the real confusion came in was when NOW was organized. And they forbid them. That's when Langland lost that election.
Yeah.
They told everybody to stay away from the polls.
Now it is.
And they did. And he lost that election. And I believe he was about one of them. Well, he was.
Were the people scared of now, or were they just?
Well, they was because they were burning so much,
They were.
They were burning. They started burning the night Dr. King died. Is the night that they reorganized, and they started that burning business. And
Do you think the leadership?
Hmm?
Do you think the leadership was involved in the burning?
I don't think so.
No.
No, I don't think so. Of course, he was.
It was just the members were.
He was the president, naturally.
Yeah.
The organization would be accused, and he being the president,
Mhm.
he is accused of,
Right.
But I don't think he did.
Yeah.
I don't think he had anything to do with that.
Right.
Because I do know some that did that was nowhere near.
Mhm.
But they just went haywire.
That's right.
They just went off.
Yeah.
And he gets the blame for all of this.
Mhm.
But he was not the one that, But they were the night of Dr. King's death. I think the first place they went was a liquor store on Davis Avenue. They riddled Davis Avenue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then.
They were on the street.
And from that on, they were used like the store across the street here wanted to get some money, and has an insurance on them. Well, he got out the best that he wanted, and he'd have it set aside so he could get, and this was a thing that was going on among the owners. People had houses they wanted to get rid of, and they had them insured, and they'd have them set aside.
Right.
And this is what the racket went into. So they were being accused of it, and they weren't, guilty.
Right.
You notice those, every one of them was stores.
So, the whites were doing that on their own, too. Yeah.
So he got the blame for that, but he was not guilty. Have to give him that credit.
Yeah. But he was stronger at that time than LaFleur?
Yes, he was much stronger than John was, because he had the nitty-gritty people. He had the people on the street. See, John didn't have the people on the street anymore.
Yeah. That's Beasley?
Beasley. They had the nitty-gritty people.
There were more of them.
Yeah. This is what, brought him where he is now.
Yeah.
Because of this.
Who was the first, well, I imagine LaFleur, if he was bought, then he was sold out to what white commissioner?
Yeah, well, I'll say to the commissioners, yeah.
To the commissioners?
Yeah.
Anyone in particular?
No, I wouldn't say one in particular.
What? Yeah.
I think it was just all of them.
Right.
They were together.
Well, when did you become involved in? Well, you started going to the NAACP meetings, and you were a follower of LaFleur. And at what point did you you formed the opinion now that LaFleur was bought, but you have esteem for him back in the early days? At what point did you part with him?
See, he was depended upon. We could depend on him.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we were not out there to actually fight the battle with him, but we just felt like he was just a good leader. That's all. He did.
Yeah.
Very good leader. A lot of people don't want to give him that credit because they don't know what has happened in the, they only know what is in the future, but they never knew what was in the past.
Right.
But I can go back to the past and come up to the future of what he did.
Yeah.
And he was pretty strong. And I would say he was strong even at this. Well, they let him get by with some of the things that he did in order to do the things that they want him to do. So they gave him a little bit, and he gave them a little bit.
What was he able to get for them, by being in a good position like he was?
What was he able to get?
Get for the black people?
Well, he got quite a bit. He got quite a bit. He pulled them up quite a bit, too. He pulled them up quite a bit.
Oh, he did? Yeah.
He would say, come up to my office, and we'll fix up an affidavit for that. Fix the affidavit, and that's it. No more. don't know what they were trying to do, but they got the cow by the tail instead of by the horn. They all want to do something, but they don't do it in the right way.
Yeah.
They don't go back and get the nitty-gritty people. The people that and I can go back to the organization that back in those days they did help the people. But when all of this money came in, then it was a new ballgame. So it seemed to me that they take up collections and don't know what happens to the collections. It's more where they come in and gather this money and break up, lay it down.
Yeah.
And all of this arrived after the NAACP went out. We didn't have but the one. And then when they went out, then they organized the Alabama Civic Affair, which at first it was a Christian movement. Then they went into the Alabama Civic Affair. And it was, it was very strong. Then from that, they went into a Monday night movement. That was Bishop Smith's show.
What was the Monday night movement?
That was another civil rights movement. And they were doing very well. And
Did you met every Monday night? Where did they meet?
they would meet at State Street Church. And then after that one went out, then the state coordinator. Let's see what other one we had after that. There's been so many of them come in. The Civic Affair number 1, Civic Affair number 2.
Yeah.
They act like they were more afraid. And you see, the ones that was doing the leading were the ones that was in these screening committees. And they had to, handle things very carefully, because when election time comes, this is where they showed their power.
Right.
This is how they showed their power.
Yeah.
That they had the mass of people.
Right.
So that's how they.
Is there any truth to the somebody told me that
At the ILA home. Now, when he went into the movement, they tried to get him here, and he wouldn't come because they wanted him to come here for their benefit. And he was making anyway, he never came back, but his brother did. LM came for Emancipation Day. But they tried to get him here, and he wouldn't come because of the money business. So he sent me back here, not he alone. I was one of the staff members. Sent me back here to organize a local committee, a program committee, and to get the ministers together. I asked what minister did they want me to contact, and they told me Reverend Lambert and Reverend McCree. So they had called to the auditorium and had the auditorium verify that they could get the auditorium for him to come here on his, when he was on his fundraising. So I came back here and got in touch with Reverend McCree and Reverend Lambert and a few more, Reverend Gibbs of Warren Street Church, and Reverend Felix Brown were the two ministers that showed up. And C.J. Johnson and C.J. Johnson and I think it was I can't remember just who all were there, but anyway, those were the preachers that was there. So Reverend McCree said that he would be the one to give Reverend Dr. King his speech because he was too conservative and didn't want him to come here and embarrass them. And I said, well, I don't know how you all will arrange that. I said, he only said that he would send Reverend Abernathy down to talk to you all. Only thing it was that we to get together for the program committee, and then after we got the program committee together, then they would send somebody from Atlanta here to meet with the program committee to get them. So that went on all right that night, but he said that he would have to talk to the other ministers. Next morning, around about 9 or 9:30, he calls me, Reverend McCree, and says, you can call it off, Miss Williams, that I can talk for the rest of the ministers. That Jose, Reverend Dr. King, has given Jose his blessing to fight against the war of Vietnam. And any time you want to overthrow the government, I'm not for it. I said, well, Reverend McCree, if my son is over there fighting, which he is, I said, I'll walk to Vietnam. I said, you might not have no one. I said, I think that's a very narrow thing. So he said, well, just call it off. I said, well, okay then. We'll do that. So I called him to Atlanta and told him that the ministers had asked to call it off.
Now that was King to come to Mobile?
Yeah. He was coming to Mobile, to the municipal auditorium.
And that was in, what, 68 or 9? No, 67.
That was in February, because he was coming, I think, on the 27th. I think it was on the 27th of April. Now, I'm not too sure of that date, but he was killed on the 4th.
Yes.
So he never did get here. So when the night that he was killed, we went to the NAACP's meeting, and they were very, much against the SCLC. So they were asking for them to, do something about it and give it, and they ignored it. So that's what started the racket. And this is when NOW was organized. They got up and walked out. So I said, well, I tell you what, I said, let us get together and let's have a memorial march. So the group said, okay. I said, let's go to David Jacobs' house. I said, now we have the charter of NOW, and we will go under the charter of NOW. We went out to David Jacobs and organized that night again for the march. We had it all set up. That Saturday morning, who was at the church of Good Shepherd was the ministers coming to take it over. Now, I said, well, where were you all at the time that we needed you? We could not get you.